Hey there and welcome back to Rimworld. My name is Pete and today we complete another episode of our Rimworld Anomaly Sea Ice Challenge with the transhumanist paragons of Pandroth. As you can see, last time we left off after making quite a mess of the sea ice, we had a mech cluster land near our base and consequently we provoked the void to receive a horde of devourers who we let into the mechs to deal with them. And perhaps that went a bit too well, as almost all of the entities survived and came after us next, but we held them off, captured a few, reformed our ideology with the human primacy meme, abducted this pigskin master crafter here, currently in the gene extractor, and also saw our child Roman age up, who is currently sleeping off his gene implantation coma. We are also still mining out the pit gate. Tunneler Mulch Butler is making good progress here, I'd say. And good progress is also what our anomaly studies are making, as we have now unlocked the knowledge to provoke our own pit gate. Now, as long as we already have one on the map, we can't spawn a second one, but this should still prove useful sooner or later. For now, we'll quickly pour all study progress into sleep suppression, and while that's underway, we construct a mech band antenna. This device allows us to summon more advanced mechanoids, in this case the War Queen, so that we won't always have to call in the Diabolus threat, not to mention that these more advanced mechs will also drop more advanced loot. Up next, our pigskin's gene extraction comes to completion, and we extract a combination gene pack including the genes nearsighted, strong immunity and strong stomach. In terms of metabolic efficiency, this comes out as a net 0, so it would be possible to slap this onto anyone without any major consequences, although we should be careful with the nearsighted gene, as that's really only going to be useful for people who don't fight, so perhaps this gene pack here should be reserved for our crafting slaves. Now, up next, it's quest time. As you can see, we are finishing 2 drop pods here, as those will be needed to complete this climate adjuster quest. I just can't bring myself to pass up the opportunity for a tech prof sub persona core, and to be honest, I don't see a transhumanist colony do so either. This could help save us a lot of time on one of the major research projects we still need to complete, not to mention that the reinforced barrel is a nice add-on on top of it all. The climate adjuster then spawns very close to our base, but still we're not going there on foot. Simply accepting the quest is also already enough to hand us the reward, so let us now pick that research project that we're going to fast track. And to be honest, I think the choice here is actually quite easy. It's going to be recon armor. Costing 12,000 points worth of research, it is by far the biggest project we currently have access to. Recon and later on marine and cataphract armor are also the only viable alternatives to parkers out here on the sea ice, and even they might not quite be enough. So we continue then with specialized limbs, and then we get ready for today's first quest. Venturing out to the climate adjuster will be the proud parents Lauren and Maniac together with Scythe and Gnome, and of course, as always, they'll bring with them some materials for the return trip. After the pods have been loaded, we then launch them right into the middle of the map. As I had hoped, that brings them and their materials a bit closer to the device. Unfortunately though, it also immediately triggers the unknown threat, as we are now being ambushed by Neanderthals. In some ways that's good for us, because they are wielding exclusively melee weapons, although on the downside that also means that Maniac is probably going to take a hit or two here. Alright, that was actually a bit easier than expected. It only takes 3 kills and we sent the rest of them packing. As you can see though, Maniac did take a fair amount of damage, so while Gnome goes to work on the climate adjuster, Lauren quickly builds the first transport pod. A short moment later then, Maniac and Gnome already arrive back home, ready to receive tending and repairs. Lauren meanwhile takes care of everything else, while our anomaly researchers unlock the sleep suppressor. However, that's not actually the device we were looking for. What we are interested in is the frenzy inducer. Boosting work and movement speed at the cost of mood and potential berserk mental breaks, I think this could be very useful to install in our slave quarters, while our advanced research project will now finally be serum synthesis. We haven't really touched the whole serum aspect of Anomaly yet, but at the very least this will eventually allow us to resurrect our ghouls, which I have a feeling we might need to do sooner or later. Lauren, meanwhile, giving the climate adjuster the final couple of blows. With it destroyed, we are then also going to deconstruct the shack it was housed inside. After all, out here on the sea ice, wood is pretty hard to come by. And it takes a little while, but eventually we've got everything loaded up, and Lauren returns home, a quest quickly completed. Now, a short while ago we received a reinforced barrel, so let us construct ourselves a mortar now. That might actually come in handy during the next quest we're about to accept. And of course, we also need to make some mortar shells for it all to work out nicely. While preparations are underway, our ghoul Midnight can once again hop into the gene extractor. Worst case scenario, we extract something that we can then sell later. And as you can see up here in our workshop, we are also getting a sizable row of shelves going. I think with colony wealth slowly but steadily approaching 200,000 silver, we no longer need to have stuff lying around on the floor. With the mortar then successfully constructed, it is time to accept the second quest of today's episode. Yes, we are inviting another mech cluster to the sea ice. I was admittedly very hesitant about accepting this one. As you can see, the list of enemies and mech devices here is lengthy, but I really want to have those 3 death rest capacity serums. So let's accept the quest. This will in fact bring another climate adjuster our way. Let's hope that it doesn't land too close to home. Okay, that seems moderately far away. Most importantly though, it also seems pretty damn dangerous. We have 9 large turrets here, a few small ones too, about 25 mechs and more coming in through assemblers or drop beacons. To make matters even worse, a mech high shield is protecting almost the entire setup. Although, crucially, we should be able to hit these 4 turrets down here with our mortar, and perhaps the climate adjuster as well, although that one will take a few days to activate. Now, admittedly, all of this looks dire, but keep in mind, all of these mechanoids are currently still asleep. And we might be able to wake them up to a nasty surprise by researching IEDs now, which, if we're careful about it, we can actually place throughout this mech cluster without disturbing anything. At a cost of 1000 points of research, this should be quickly completed, and as you can see, we have at least 11 days here before the climate adjuster kicks in. Plenty of time to witness little blue Roman take his first steps in the colony, as he puts on some proper clothing to keep himself warm. From Midnight then we extract the unattractive gene. However, we do already have a copy of that in our gene bank, so we'll probably end up selling it. A short while later, we are then informed that our pigskin prisoner has awoken from her psychic coma, so we immediately send over Vulik to convert her to the Paragons of Pandroth. Thanks to the fact that she has the Wimp trait, certainty loss should be rapid, as you can see 44% with just a single use of the ability. Now, for the most part, the rest of the day here remains uneventful. Our mortar is ready and has enough shells to fire until its barrel runs out, so while we wait for that IED research to finish, we just spend our time making the base look a little nicer. That is, until the pit gate rumbles, for the second time in a rather short while actually, and well, that might just put our IED plans on hold. I think we may have just found a perfect opening move against that mech cluster. So, once again, an absolute horde of flesh beasts emerges from the pit, and Vulik will be tasked with luring them where we want them to be. Considering his jogger trait and the fact that he is currently under the influence of a go frenzy, that should not be too difficult, so the risk is minimal for now, at least until we get to the mechs. Speaking of mechs, Lifterbot Frelok has successfully been resurrected. Mechanitor Lauren will take care of that, while Vulik leads the flesh beasts into combat. Now we do have one single tri-spike here going after our deep drill, but I think that that's a loss we can take if it means the others will go after the mechs. The plan here is actually to loop around and attack the mechs from the back. I really don't think the flesh beasts will win this one, but I want them to destroy as many of the things inside of that mech high shield as possible. Keep in mind that we still have a mortar to take care of everything outside of its radius. Now the tri-spike and the resulting finger spikes, a quick and easy task for our 3 ghouls. While Vulek is almost in perfect position, we've got a few bulb freaks just about to wander off here. So I think the time has come, and maybe we can start things off with a bang. Perhaps we can hit the unstable power cell here to get things going. Alright, we cannot, in fact not even a single shot lands, so the mech cluster actually remains dormant, although not for long. And just like that, the carnage begins, and it is once again going to be absolutely beautiful. An absolute slaughter of flesh and machine, and in the middle of it all, we've just received a quest. Now, the rewards here don't actually intrigue me all that much. However, considering that we have a pit gate to use, disposing of roughly 500 toxic waste packs should not be too difficult. But let's take things one step at a time. We have 5 days to make a decision here. For now, we can watch the slaughter continue, although as you can see, the mechs are keeping the upper hand here. That unstable power cell, however, did eventually blow up, and the mechs are losing some of their units, mostly the smaller, weaker ones, probably also due to the excessive amount of friendly fire. Nonetheless, it only takes a few more moments here until the fight is over. And so the sea ice now lies quiet once more, which then brings us to phase 2. We're going to use that mortar we just built. Now, using the numbers mod here, we can quickly see who would be the most accurate using it, and that would be Mechanitor Lauren, thanks to her combination of high shooting and manipulation stats. As she gets ready, the serum synthesis research already completes, and as I mentioned earlier, the logical next step here would be ghoul resurrection. The first mortar shot then unfortunately lands just shy of its target. The reason why we are now targeting these turrets is that they actually match our snipers for range, so if we want to take some ranged potshots at the cluster here, we need to have them out of the way first. So while Lauren fires shell after shell, our prisoner has successfully been converted, which means the next step will be enslaving her. Just as the first turret then goes down, that whole enslaving business is made a bit more difficult by our pigskin going berserk, although by now all of you should know how this is going to end. So, pigskin down, prison break averted, but the events don't stop coming. Our twisted obelisk is finally doing something. It has mutated Ellie's lung. Now harboring a painful mass of semi-sentient flesh in her chest, Ellie's right lung is now a flesh mass lung, immune to lung rot and asthma, and also rather resistant to toxins, albeit at the cost of a little pain. All in all, that doesn't seem too bad, particularly from a transhumanist point of view. At the very least, we now know what the twisted obelisk does, and we need to keep studying it either way, if only to find out how to shut it down. Now, as you can see, our mortar bombardment is making slow but steady progress, and the mechs also do not seem particularly interested in doing anything about it. We then also receive another rather curious event, the appearance of 2 Shamblers, and I'll go so far as to say that these 2 will most likely not solve the mech problem either. Lauren's next shot, however, does, at least one small part of it, and so, equipped with sniper rifles, we now send out our 2 deathless ones, Vulek and Maniac, who quickly find themselves approached by a pikeman. Now, the pikeman's needle gun actually matches our sniper rifles for range, so this is not entirely risk-free. The whole affair actually quickly develops into a rather tedious back and forth. Essentially, we are skirmishing here, constantly moving in and out of attack range. And it is actually the mechanoids who land the first hit, but that's why we send 2 pawns with the Deathless gene, who then at least make some progress by taking out the mech assembler. The first pikeman goes down in the evening hours. Unfortunately though, there are quite a few more still left to go. Like I said, it's a tedious process, now only interrupted by an orbital trader passing by, who we are now going to call upon as pikeman number 2 goes down. The trade then consists of the sale of 50 hard-earned components as well as some old clothing items. In exchange, we'll grab 2 additional death rest capacity serums, bringing the total earned in this episode up to 5, that is, if we can defeat those mechs. In that regard, we have actually made a bit of a breakthrough here, as the mech high shield is currently turned off and being recharged, So let's have Lauren man the mortar once more. This time we are targeting the unstable power cell. However, things do not seem to go quite according to plan. 7 hours later the thing is still standing and we are down to our last mortar shot. After this one we will need to replace the barrel, and we only had the one. But Lauren comes through when it counts the most, hits the target and causes a good bit of extra destruction. Still, what's left are a good 15 to 20 mechanoids, and well, it did work moderately well the first time around. Let's send some flesh beasts their way once more. I'm really not counting on this doing any significant damage whatsoever to the centipedes. I'm just hoping that we can perhaps get some of the pikemen and lancers out of the way. And there we go, the flesh beasts have been summoned, as strong as we are currently capable of. Once again, let's see how this goes. Alright, brief interruption here, as we are informed that we have acquired a new slave. Apparently she was in fact the Pigskin's faction leader, and the fight here is more or less over anyway, so we are ready to jump over to her. That is, after we witness Lifterbot Cruxel storming into the lion's den. Overly eager to already bring some plasteel back to the base, the small Lifterbot now gets itself killed. Well, we can and will resurrect them. For now though, let's give out a new name to our second slave. As always, chosen from the list of Patreon supporters in the naming rights tier and above, she will now go by the name of Shireen, and with a level 18 crafting skill, she is most likely going to be a tremendous help. Now, at this point, you can see it, Vulek and Maniac are being sent out again, and also once again, I will just quickly go through the highlights with you here. The few pikemen that remain are certainly not standing much of a chance in a straight-up shootout, and eventually then we whittle our enemies down to only lancers, scythers and centipedes. That means our 2 sharpshooters now have the upper hand, although taking out 8 centipedes with 2 sniper rifles is not exactly quickly accomplished. An hour later then, the IED research project is finally complete. Not that we really need it anymore, but I thought we might as well go through with it in anticipation of the next mech cluster. Now, after a few more hours of shooting, we then at least destroy the climate adjuster. Not that a minus 10 degrees Celsius temperature drop would have been the biggest threat here. And I think we might once again require some assistance here, so let's draw some Shamblers. Just like the flesh beasts earlier, these will very likely get slaughtered extremely quickly, but they could take out some of the scythers, cause a bit of chaos, friendly fire, all that. At the very least, it makes our pawns happy for participating in another psychic ritual. A short while later, the Shamblers then arrive, 61 of them, a good number, and being Shamblers, they will now very slowly crawl their way across the map. Hopefully they won't bypass the Mech's attack range, otherwise Vulek might once again have to lend some assistance. A local snowhare going mad then spells doom for the poor animal. The Shamblers meanwhile have not really made all that much progress. Down in the dark pit gate, meanwhile, we are about to witness an interesting phenomenon. Mulch Butler has mined out everything we have assigned to him and will now head back to the surface to recharge, which brings us to all of that toxic waste we have been dumping down here, as some of it has actually dissolved already, polluting the area. Not much of a problem for our mechs maybe, but for the dreadmelts very much so, the toxic buildup now actually becoming too much to handle, and the dreadmelt dies. As a result, the undercave has become unstable and will collapse in 11 hours. Certainly not the way I had planned for this to go, but it is enough time to send down a small group of lifterbots to carry out all of the remaining steel, while we also assemble a strike force to deal with the remaining flesh beasts. The dreadmelt did drop 3 shards after all, and we definitely want to grab those. With our ghouls manning the front line, this should not be too difficult, and indeed, with Maniac quickly chopping down the finger spike jumping behind our lines here, the fight is over quickly. So, a short while later, our heroes return to the surface as we hear gunfire in the background, and yes, it appears as if Shamblers and Mechs have finally met. Once again, this should be a quick affair, but we can also see the mechs are taking some casualties, specifically their scythers are going down. As a matter of fact, I think after this onslaught is complete here, nothing but centipedes will remain. The Shamblers then actually go one step further and also go to work on the small turret here. Destroying it then officially defeats the mech cluster buildings, and as such, our reward arrives. Not only that, with the ground-penetrating scanner, we have also found another steel deposit, perhaps a bit too far away from the base for my liking, but the current one will most likely last us long enough to find another one. Now, as we very happily take note of the fact that 2 centipedes have also gone down in the Shambler onslaught, we then unlock Ghoul Resurrection, so we can now perhaps be a bit more careless with the fights that we throw Midnight Jay and Kelly into, such as this one right here, our longest ranging soldiers now taking on the centipedes, who, with the mech cluster buildings destroyed, are now coming after us. Perhaps not the best time to throw a party, but who is going to blame 3-year-old Roman for doing so? Once again, this here is a bit of a tedious affair, but since we comfortably outranged the centipedes, not all that risky. And so, eventually, we close in on the last one. Our ghouls here are running forward to strike the final blow, but as you can see, that won't even be necessary. And so, there we are, using pretty much all of the tricks we had at our disposal. But the mechs are officially defeated, and we can harvest the fruit of our labor, as Elpis will now ingest 3 of the 5 death rest capacity serums we obtained. As a result, he can now connect to up to 4 death rest devices, and you may have seen this coming already, all 4 of those will be psychofluid pumps. So, as everyone is getting their midday nap, Elpis goes around extracting hemogen pack after hemogen pack. Our slaves meanwhile have found their roles too. Zamal is currently shredding mechanoids while Shireen is chopping stone blocks, and we will most likely have them on component making duty sooner or later as well. Shortly after psychofluid pump number 3 is up and running, we are then informed of yet another underground steel deposit. This one, however, sadly right next to the one we just found and even further away, so I suppose we'll have to keep looking. Or we just wait until Randy simply drops some steel right outside our front door, the steel meteorite here a welcome sight to add to our supply. In the evening then, the 4th psychofluid pump is done, and with that we have everything we need for Elpis. At this point, with each death rest, he will now gain a 100% bonus to his psychic sensitivity, so we should probably start setting our sights on acquiring some actual psycasts for him soon. But I think we can take care of that next time. As for today, I think we have reached a good point to make the cuts. So, as always, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can go ahead and subscribe to stay up to date, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or check out and maybe even pledge to the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.